myself too.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Linda Oglesby, and I'm the committee manager here at the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started with our program, Attract and Hire Diverse Talent, I would just like to remind you of a couple things. One, if you could please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise, that would be wonderful. As well as this meeting is being recorded, so the event will be sent to all registrants in 2 to 3 business days after our event. Thank you, everyone, and I'm handing it over to Dave.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Della Terza. I'm the Executive Director at Naperville Public Library, and I'm this year's Chair of the Chamber's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We've been working to provide some really high-quality programming and educational resources for the community this year. And I'd like to thank SICKICH and PNC Bank as the 2021 Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee sponsors. At this month's program, we're going to be focusing on attracting and hiring diverse talents. In today's world, considering diversity is really important for any business, regardless of size. A diverse workforce drives greater innovation, increased productivity, and most importantly, business growth. No longer can you use the excuse, we don't get enough diverse applicants, or worse, we don't get enough qualified diverse applicants. We'll be talking with our panel today about how they're attracting and hiring diverse talent with the skills and expertise that they need. And first, as we start this program, we want to do some quick polls to get an idea of the audience we have with us today. So as you consider the questions for the polls, we're going to have a social identity wheel up on the screen where you can see many of the different areas of diversity you might want to consider in your workforce as you answer these questions. So our first poll question is a statement where we'd like you to tell us how much you agree with the following statement. I am a part of an organization that employs diverse talent.
Can everyone see the polls as they're being asked?
No.
Linda, I think if you can show the poll.
Yeah, Dave, if you could repeat the question, I could
Sure.
type it up and get it kicked in.
Absolutely. Okay, so the question is how much you agree with the following statement. I am a part of an organization that employs diverse talent. And the options would be strongly agree, strongly disagree, strongly disagree. And then I don't know. Just give it a sec. And if worse comes to worse and it's not popping up, we'll be okay. Okay, it looks like it's coming up. There we go. So we see the responses coming in. Give everyone another second or two. Looks like overall, so we have about 35% strongly agree, 50% agree, 14% disagree, and 0% strongly disagree. So that's good to see. And then our second poll question, which I'll give Linda a second for, is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. How successful is your organization in hiring diverse talent? So you would pick 5 if your organization is very successful, 1 if you are having difficulty in this area. Yep. Give it another second or two.
Hello. This is.
Just a reminder, if you could mute your mics, thank you.
Okay, so on our response, it looks like we're kind of all over the map, but the highest is right in the middle there, number 3. So it looks like for the most part, everyone here is hiring diverse talent, but there is some difficulty. So I think this will actually be a really great program then for everybody. Now what I'm going to do is hand things over to Pam McElvane. She's going to be the moderator for our program to introduce herself and to talk to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm so excited to have had the opportunity to be here to speak with you all this morning. Thank you, Sharmila and the Chamber for bringing forward this conversation. My name is Pamela McElvane. I'm the CEO of a P&L Group holding company. We have 3 brands, diversity publishing, benchmarking research. We do the best places to work for managers with the intersection of DEI strategies and talent management, and then learning solutions aligned with best practices. So I'm excited about this conversation. I'm also a newly published author, our series of 8, the first one, The Skinny on Diversity Recruiting, the current and best practice trends for talent acquisition. So one of the reasons I think I was invited to moderate this esteemed panel is because I've been spending 15 years collecting data and analyzing what organizations, particularly blue chip organizations, are doing to bring forward diversity within the workplace. I will tell you, over the span of the last 3 to 4 decades, the term diversity has evolved. And I'm sure if we were to ask everyone what it means to you, it would be a different answer based on your own experiences. But one of the big things that I think it's most important is that at the end of the day, when we talk about diversity, we are speaking to people of color, identity, persons with disabilities, of course, veterans, the LGBTQ community, and then it goes beyond with the 64 dimensions of diversity. But we really want to make sure that we have a representation of folks across the marketplace with not the exclusion of all groups. And of course, white Americans are included in that, not just white females, but men as well. Everyone brings a diverse cultural perspective to us. So one of the things I will say about the poll, where between the first poll, you talk about diversity in your organization, and 70% of folks says, yes, we have it. Well, the reality is that, of course, most organizations have 50% plus diversity among their associate or employee ranks. When you look at the leadership, it's less than 10%. So you have to ask yourself, what does the pipeline of changing your workforce looks like? How serious are we in advancing women and people of color so that our leadership mirrors what our workforce looks like, and then as well as our customer base? So as we're here today and have the conversation with these esteemed leaders about what are some of the best practices that they were successful in doing and achieving, and what are some of the barriers, have some real talk about that. We ask you to please participate with us in the chat. We will pause and take some questions so that you can be as part of this dialogue as much as we possibly can. My website is diversitymbamagazine.com/book. You'll get a free ebook if you just register. There are paperback copies that are available on Amazon, but let's get the free stuff right now. So I just want to talk about a little bit about the makeup of our panel before I have them introduce themselves. So we have a person that manages the people in the human resource function that really looks at leadership commitment and strategy. And that's Jana. She's going to bring forward to us that level of thinking and that broad perspective that helps you understand what's happening in those leadership roles. And then, we have James, who does the contracting and ensure that he goes out and able to bring forward the broader scale of diversity recruiting. as mandates of accountability to bring forward the talent folks say they can't have. So, you know, what is important is to understand when you contract with someone, are they doing what you want them to do? And then we have the person that really is focusing on the identity, the organization group that people say, we can't find, you know, persons with disabilities. We can't find, you know, veterans. We can't find folks that have these unique identities and they're afraid to self-identify or fully disclose. So together, holistically, this panel should be able to bring forward a broad conversation for you guys to be able to understand some aspects of both the challenges and what the opportunities are. So with that, what I like to do is I want the panel to share a little bit about who they are, and then we'll dive right in. So Janice Parks is our Chief Human Resource Officer from First Hospitality. Janice, will you share a little bit about your background?
Yes, thank you, Pam, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here today. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for First Hospitality. We are a management company. We manage hotel properties across the Midwest, and we'll be expanding soon across the US. So very excited about that opportunity. I don't have to tell you the hospitality industry was one of the hardest hit during the pandemic. So we've had our own challenges, not only around diversity and inclusion, but hiring and staffing our hotels. Prior to joining First Hospitality, I've been there for about 2 years now. I worked as an HR officer for McDonald's Corporation, where I held multiple roles, including managing regions, divisions, as well as overseeing and directing the diversity and inclusion department. So happy to be here to share my experiences with all of you today.
Thank you, Janice. We look forward to this insightful conversation with you. So we're going to have James. James is the CEO and founder of James Emmet Company, and he's going to bring to us forward a very unique perspective on the work that he's been doing. So James, you're going to take a few minutes to share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody, absolutely. And I apologize, the power just went off in my house, so I had to jump back on. I've been on 50 panels, it's never happened before. So my apologies, I joined from my phone for now. But it's nice to meet everybody. I am James Emmet. I am the owner of James Emmet and Company. We are one of the country's largest and growing disability inclusion firms. We work with companies large and mid-sized to help them build out national and regional disability inclusion projects. We mostly focus in the distribution, the logistics, distribution, manufacturing, food production, and retail worlds, but also work with companies in hospitality and healthcare as well. And so it's a pleasure to be here. I've been in the field of disability employment for my whole career. I have a disability myself. I was born without a left hand. I have 2 daughters with disability, so very personal issue to me, but also my kind of overall goal is to see help thousands of people with disabilities find meaningful careers. So pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, James. And we look forward to some of the secrets to the sauce to bringing forward the 35% of our population that have disabilities, where only 17% are employed. So thank you so much, James. And Khushbu, we're excited to have you join us. Khushbu Dalvi is the program coordinator for Parents Alignment Employment Project. We share a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Khushbu Dalvi. I'm the program coordinator at Parents Alliance Employment Project. We're a nonprofit located here locally in Lisle we've been serving the DuPage County area and have expanded to the surrounding counties to serve people with disabilities to help find competitive employment, which involves a lot of business networking and connecting with businesses, with qualified candidates for their open positions, as well as helping advocacy for the individuals, and just kind of finding that perfect fit for both the individual and the company. We've been around from, since the 1980s, started by a group of parents who had, children with disabilities, and it's kind of evolved from there into this amazing agency that's been able to serve so many more.
Thank you so much, Khushbu, for sharing. So, you're wondering why, wow, we focused on, one identity group, but persons with disabilities is the largest minority in the world, and 35% live here in the United States. And people, 1 in 2 people either have someone in their family with a disability or disability themselves. So it's a huge focus that we have to look at and figure out how we can better feel comfortable and trusting in the environment. So I'm hoping that's where James and Khushbu can bring forward. So, you guys, I want you to, definitely feel free and answer the questions, jump in when you have a pointed question. But, I just finished this book. They call me the Diva Queen of Data. So, so I'll share with you. Do you know 98% of the 600 companies, CEOs that participated in our index said that we signed the pledge. We're committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to invest here in the community, and we're going to make it happen. We're going to have the race and racism and systemic racism conversation in the workplace, and we're going out to hire folks. We're going to hire so hard and strong. We just got to do it. In fact, we're doing such a great job. We're putting folks in the chief diversity officer role without experience that are just influencers. Wow, what is the excitement and energy? But let's just have some real talk today. So I'm going to ask Janice and James and Khushbu, are you guys ready to bring some real talk forward? Some honest, authentic conversations?
Absolutely.
You bet.
We're getting ready to go there. So bring the full real questions to the chat, okay? And I'm going to go to the suite. I'm going straight to the C-suite, and I'm going to ask Janice, and James, they're going to have to come forward. So share with us, and we want to definitely bring it forward too. But first, share with us, what are some of the real obstacles, couple that you're facing, and then what you are doing to overcome them. So not just what they are, but what are a couple that you face and what are you doing to overcome them?
Yeah, so the real opportunity starts with leadership. It starts at the very top. Those of you that are running companies, leading companies, or in a similar seat that I'm in or not, have an opportunity to voice how you feel within your organization, whether it's 2 people or 10,000 people. It's important that your voice be heard. So let's start there. If your leadership has not bought in, and we just heard Pam talk about all the wonderful things we saw during the social unrest about companies coming forward and making these commitments and the pledges, I can't wait to go back and see where they are in another year from now. However, what can we do about it today? I am fortunate to work for a company where our C-suite has said yes. I've been in numerous conversations with some of you about what does that really mean? Because a lot of times these leaders don't have the necessary either experience or knowledge how to go about doing it. It sounds good. It looks good on paper. It looks better in our annual reports. But the real test comes to what do our bottom lines look like in terms of diversity and inclusion. Some of the things that we did right away in our organization, we formed a diversity and inclusion council. I went from an organization overseeing 10,000 people to then overseeing about 2,500 people, big difference. But I will tell you how things get done at this level is exactly the same. And that's by having the corporate leaders embrace and support and not just on paper. So we challenged our leaders throughout our entire organization to commit to what I call hiring panels. So no longer, if you're interviewing at First Hospitality in a leadership position, would you be interviewed by just one person? Panels, because of the virtuality opportunity we all have now through Zoom and Teams, we can do these easier. But when we can't do them, we still have panels, meaning that I will interview somebody, we'll have others in the leadership or hiring position also do those interviews. And then collectively, we sit down and talk about, the pros and cons of hiring a candidate, what they bring to the job. And I will tell you, by having different perspectives and different people at the table allows us to make different decisions about who we're hiring. Somebody's response to a question will resonate different to me than they may to my partner. And again, when we look at we haven't gotten into biases yet, but when we look at our own unconscious biases, we bring those wherever we go. And it's nice to have a panel there to say, well, I didn't hear that, or I heard something different, right? I heard some excitement there when you heard somebody feel a different way about an answer. So to me, that's been one of the most important things we've done. I can tell you a list of other things that we've been successful with. But starting at the top, I think, was the biggest strategy in getting our leaders to buy in on and say, yes, I'm going to hold in making that decision until a panel has provided us with the direction and where to go.
And Janice, that's the best practice, and everyone's not doing it. So the fact that that is being cascaded through the organization and you're saying, this is what we have to do, you're absolutely right. In fact, I know we have research that did it, but Harvard says if you have a diverse panel, you're 300% more likely to actually hire a diverse candidate. So thank you so much. So I want to ask Jesse about, James, about, what strategies can you use to make sure you're attracting persons with disabilities? And that has been, let me ask you, give a couple of barriers that you've seen and how you've been able to overcome them.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, Pam. And what I would start with is what we see in the disability inclusion world is the number one barrier to implementation is fear and stigma with a bullet, right? That leaders, that top level leaders, on the ground managers are, we want honest talk, are afraid that people with disabilities can't do the job, right? And that stigma is out there, and it's getting better and it's changing slowly. But the truth is, as you said, right, a third of our country has a disability. Over a half of our country, disability is a personal issue, right? The talent pool and the skill level that exists in our community is as diverse, right, as the people themselves. And so for me, part of the reason, because we can bring all the business benefits in disability inclusion, reduce turnover, loyal workers, reduce safety incidences, equal productivity, enhanced problem solving, enhanced for all those things. But until the company and its leaders really take a look at not just disability awareness training, but really kind of take a deeper dive into their own fears and stigmas about doing this at a broader scale, we're not going to be able to sustain an initiative within a company, big or small, right? And so actively addressing that fear and stigma and having conversations, right, led by, if you have a chief diversity officer, or led by your head of HR, or led by the CEO, right? But having those, not just trainings, but those conversations is key. And then you can begin to put the, to start thinking about your recruiting strategy. And we can talk some more details about language and that type of thing. But I think first and foremost, I want to make sure that folks are having those fear and stigma discussions and reaching out, right? Reaching out to the disability community as they begin those.
Thank you for that. And what an opportunity to have authentic conversations about folks with disabilities. And it's amazing because right there in the workplace, the invisible disabilities that we tend to overlook. And if people felt safe in being able to do that. So Kushba, Kushba, we're also talking about retaining the talent too. So what are some of the things folks can do in the onboarding process to help both persons with disabilities or just a diverse talent feel better and be able to engage in the culture faster? And please, after Kushbu answers, each of you guys feel free if you want to add to her answer.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes back to what Janice said, right? It starts with leadership. You have to lead by example for your team to be able to be accepting and understanding of the diverse pool of candidates coming in for the onboarding process, whether that be having a disability awareness or diversity awareness training for your staff, right? And it's not just, let me go online, pull something and, just do a training to do a training, but having a meaningful training if you want to have qualified employees that you're going to retain and know that they're going to be a great asset to your company. You want to take those steps to, provide that training, because the onboarding is not just for the candidate applying, right? You have to think about how are we going to make them a part of this team? You also have to train your staff. The experiences I've gone through is we've gone to businesses and offered these trainings to how to work with me, right? You know, there's a certain way to work with someone. Someone is trained a little differently for the same task to do the same task, right? But that doesn't mean they're not capable of doing it. So it's being able to take on all of those trainings, being able to make it a match, like I said before, for the individual and the team to be able to work together to make this successful. And I've gotten, you know, I've gotten comments in the past of like, well, I'm going to put in all of this, you know, effort, and what if that individual doesn't work out? And that's okay. But another individual without a disability may not work out. Does that mean you stop hiring altogether? You don't, right? They're just a candidate who's applying for a position, who's qualified for that position. Not everyone has to work out, but you taking the effort as an employer to make sure your employees or your new employees are going to be successful is giving that opportunity, no matter who they are. And I think that's the biggest step.
So I wonder if there's an opportunity to broaden the way that you attract talent, the way that you guys message to bring people forward to look at what you have. And so, you know, Janice, I'm definitely going to ping you, not just for where you are today, but also, you know, in a larger organization with all the resources to do it. So, you know, so what can, or let me ask it this way, how can a business change or expand their recruiting techniques to find different candidates and to attract different candidates? So after Janice, James, I'd like you to chime in on that as well.
Certainly, and I get this question all the time. I can't find diverse talent, generally because we're not looking at organizations that are right in front of us. Whether I was at McDonald's or I was at First Hospitality, the same way to get to talent is through grassroots organizations like some that are mentioned here. You know, Kim runs an organization that of people who are looking for jobs every day. And if you're not tapping into your local community resources for that, you're missing a really great opportunity to meet people. Because generally, I know if I'm making a call to my network, they're going to know these individuals a little more granular than I'm going to get in terms of an interview about the individuals and showing up for talent. So really tapping into those resources. We ask that our managers, and we have over 50 properties across the Midwest and more, to work with their local community organizations to understand where the talent is, who's looking for jobs, what organizations, I think as James mentioned, might be offering diverse talent in different ways to work in our properties. I would say the biggest challenge for us today is getting out of our own way and being open to different ways of allowing people to work within our hotels, right? We look at 8 to 5. People don't want 8 to 5. Amazon has a great commercial out there. If you haven't seen it, Google it. It's really about, what do I need as an employee to work for you? Here's what I need from you, right? I want flexibility. I want to be able to take care of my elderly parent. And that means I may have to work some days from home and some days in the office. Just because we're running a hotel, we have challenged our leaders to think outside of the box in terms of, I've got to fill this 4 to 10 p.m. shift.
Yeah,
so you have to move with the changing environment to do that. But again, I think looking to grassroots organization, networking outside of your own organization, I'm a big fan of that. I've asked my team to do that. Looking for organizations. So for me, it's the National Association of African Americans in HR. It's a number of other HR organizations where I meet professionals like Pam and others who can help me find talent when I'm looking for talent or have other resources. Those are really the best ways. I don't have the multi-million-dollar organization behind me that's going to do the recruiting. We do it at a much smaller level, grassroots level within our company.
So thank you, Janice, for that. And also, just so that you guys know, flexibility is now the number one benefit that folks are looking for. So James, so what are some of the grassroots techniques? What are a couple that you actually can provide to help organizations fill those slots?
When we help, or Pam, when we help organizations build a disability-focused recruiting strategy, we really utilize 3 tiers. It suggests they use 3 tiers. So tier 1 is, and Janice said, those community organizations, in our case, that focus on disability, right? The Parents Alliance Employment Project, right? A great local partner who's going to get you a lot of great candidates. Those type of the Goodwills, the Easter Seals chapters in your community, right? So that's tier 1 of going to traditional disability organizations. But then tier 2, we also believe that a lot of people with disabilities who aren't in our traditional system are participating in religious organizations or the YMCA or local grassroots organizations. So bringing as a company your strong disability message to those what we call non-traditional disability organizations, but still those local organizations. And then tier 3 that we really believe is critical is virtual, right? Your social media approach to the community, you know, having even things like Indeed ads that for us are disability focused, have disability focused language in the ads, as well as I have a team that does Facebook and works with Facebook groups on building recruiting strategies within disability focused Facebook groups across the country. So we call it traditional, non-traditional, and virtual. We believe, but again, I think it all goes back to having that strong disability message within your recruiting materials and as you begin to talk to the community.
You know, James, that's good. That's real good. I really like the way you tiered it. So, you know, we asked the question, our first research that we did last year, we asked companies, what does your talent pipeline strategies look like for the BIPOC community, for your underrepresented and indigenous populations? And we had less than 25% of 600 companies respond to that. 70% of them were like, you know, just neutral and really did not even begin to put that into their pipeline. So if you're talking about grassroots, what you're talking about, James, your tier 2, I mean, you're talking about getting in there, you're talking about religious, going into the churches, really talking about linking pipeline and talent to people right where they are, meeting them up front and personal. You know, that's huge, and that's what it takes. And then when you talk about flexibility, you know, we're really talking about being differently. Take away the geography point of it. If you're not going to be remote and hybrid and allow folks to work, you know, be different in the way they show up, then that's going to be a real barrier. That's a real life. But now we're going to talk about, and Kushbu, I hate to put this on you, Kushbu, but we're going to go in and we're just going to hit it. We're going to hit it where the grid is, and systemic racism. So let me do a quick 30-second lesson in my view on race relations. So you know about so they talk about structural racism, right? And everybody tries to integrate those terms. Well, structural racism occurred because, right, of slavery and what have you, and everybody's talking about allyship as it occurred. Well, allyship existed. If it wasn't for allyship, the Underground Railroad would not existed, right? Because it was good white folks that helped and made it happen. So structural racism is what happened when a society is embedded in all of it. Then you go to the institutional racism because you have one institution, housing, right? Educational system, affordable housing, educational system. So all those institutions are making it prohibitive for people to have access to be successful. And then we go into systemic. They want to mix institutional and systemic racism. Well, systemic racism is what's in the policies and the practices. That's in how we're making decisions. So when you're looking at those social media and those tools, you got to be careful to see how you make decisions using those tools are perpetuating the existing systemic processes that you have in place. So how do we begin to mitigate those things? At the end of the day, it's the individual, the decisions and choices they make to decide if they're going to confront their discomforts in dealing and having the conversation about race. So based on Andrea Chute, she basically said there's 500 biases that are in the workplace. My book breaks out about 30 of them. But at the end of the day, the number one most profound way to confront bias is to be aware of it yourself and then do something about it. So I'm going to have the panel, we're going to talk about the real stuff, you guys. What keeps us from making it happen? And please feel free to share an experience of discomfort that you might have confronted. But the first question is, how do we manage bias in talent acquisition in the recruiting processes? How do we get beyond it? I'm going to start with you, Kushbu.
So the whole, unconscious bias, and it's such a big, because like Jana said earlier, it goes with you, right, wherever you go. And I think the simplest way to put it in a recruiting manner is it's the values within the company, right? It starts at the top, and it's the values you embed into your company, into your employees, into your staff, on the incoming people, right? It's how do you treat them? It's how do you train everyone to make everyone fit in, because it's not a group that we, aside from everyone's there to do a job. Everyone's there because they're qualified to do a job. So in the simplest terms for me is it's the values you put into everyone, right? I mean, it's going to go much deeper in conversation, I know that, but just to start in simplest terms, I think that's just where it starts. It's the education and advocacy that you have to kind of break the ice with to kind of start that conversation. And it's not the easiest conversation to start with. The example I used before, I mean, I've gotten comments of, well, what if we already have one of those? Well, what does that mean? Do you stop hiring because you have employees? You don't. But, James is laughing. I'm sure, you've come across so many comments, right? That it doesn't make sense if you sit down and think about it. But those unconscious bias, you have to break through those.
So Pam, we offered a course that is now a requirement for all of our leaders called Unconscious Bias. And we partnered with Franklin Covey. If you don't know who they are, they're pretty well known out there. And they offer what I call a learning platform beyond the normal training of unconscious bias. So we took all of our leaders through it at the beginning of the year. We continued throughout the year with these learning activities that help us all unveil our own biases. We all have them. And I think the minute we say that to people, there's this, if we're keeping it real here today, there's this level of shame that kind of goes away. Oh, okay, I have it too. And our white employees don't feel excluded or targeted in any way once they really understand what unconscious bias is about. I had my boss in my office the other day telling me something he really wanted me to work on, and I just stared at him, and he said, "Oh, my unconscious biases are showing up." And I said, "Yes, they are. Think about really what it is that you want, right? Don't ask me to do something that is a bias of yours. Let's deal with that and figure out the best solution together, how to move forward." But it is so important to our organization, and in organizations where the whole discussion around diversity, equity, and inclusion is a little bit uncomfortable, and most organizations it is. I think starting with the discussion about unconscious bias is kind of the icebreaker to that, and bringing more people in to understand why the work is so important.
Yeah, that's really good in terms of bringing it forward. So awareness is number one. Khushbu and Janice and James, to understand and be aware of your own. Those are the numbers. So now we have to create, Janice, when you said the activities going on through the years, you have to create habits. So to create habits, you have to have rituals, things that you do every day to create those habits so that you begin to change, right? Because it's about change management. So, but in the reality, James, what is it about the biases with the population, with persons with disability that you can even respond to this as well, Khushbu, before we move on, that you think people are just uncomfortable with? And what can you offer to help them feel comfortable with someone that may physically look different, or if they share something invisibly about them that's different?
Yeah, and I think, Janice, you did such a nice job of describing that. I think the Americans with Disabilities Act in our country has done amazing things to help increase the recognition of people with disabilities across the workforce. But in some sense, it also has, in complete honesty, has people sometimes walking on eggshells around people with disabilities, right? What can I say? What can't I say? If I walk into the room and you see I'm missing my left hand, should you look at it? Should you ask me about it? Should you not look at it, right? And these are all things that I think, again, lend themselves to honest conversation, right? That we have to be able to check ourselves and have these conversations about what is, in our case, an ableist point of view, and maybe what's, how do we fight ableism in the workplace, right? And, there are some other things that we have seen that can be activities like, how many times in your workplace do you use the term crazy, right? Today I worked like crazy, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's there's people who say that aren't intentionally trying to be ableist against somebody with mental illness, right? But that terminology, right, is in itself offensive, right? Or you're acting so retarded today, right? I hear that terminology on TV all the time. But as a parent of a daughter with an intellectual disability, that's pretty offensive term. So thinking about just having some conversations about not always having to be politically correct, but being open enough to be able to check ourselves and have discussions about language, and when we are uncomfortable, what should we do? It's the same, I think, as Janice referenced, creating that open atmosphere that starts at the top, I think is so critical.
That's good. What do you have to add to that, Khushbu?
I'm just kind of gonna go off of, how James said, it's that walking on eggshells. It's the constant underestimation. It's like the lack of skills to communicate. People don't know how can I give them direction, or I need to write them up. Can I write them up? Will I get sued? It's the constant fear of treating them like any other employee or individual. And I'm kind of sticking to the workplace because that's what we're focusing on, but it's that constant fear of, how can I do that? You need to write them up. But the point here is, you've hired them as an employee. You need to treat them as any other employee. And there's so much that we go into where I've had to talk to businesses, be like, yes, I'm with you. Yeah, you're right. They probably do need to be written up, and it's okay. But it's, kind of that education level, like James and Janice said, it's that you got to open up that conversation. You don't always have to be on eggshells, and it's the education of it, right? Like, there's proper terms for everything, and people may not say it out of malicious ways, but it's just kind of being aware. And I think if you're aware of yourself, then you can work on it. You can't ever change a whole group, but if you're aware of it and you're able to catch yourself in the moment, then that's a step towards something.
Yeah. My colleague wrote a book, The Respect Effect. Go ahead, Janice.
Pam, so I think it's okay to ask. I try to create what I call a safe zone for my folks. Right? If they enter my office and they want to have a conversation, I'll say, okay, this is a safe zone. I'd rather you say how you feel or what your needs are or what your interpretation of something was, so that we can talk about it in a safe zone, right? I do expect you to take whatever knowledge you get when you leave my office and put it into play in some degree. But I think when folks feel that they have a safe zone to have these conversations that Kush was talking about, it's important for us to allow that to happen. Otherwise, this is where conflict happens in the workplace, right? People say the wrong thing, they exhibit the wrong behavior. I have learned personally over my career, when I don't know something or want to know something, to develop relationships with people who are in that space. And it's amazing what people will share with you if you approach them the right way, right? I don't know much about this, or I'd like to learn more, or can you explain this to me? People are most likely willing to help you understand their perspective on things when you ask.
No, that's perfect. In fact, that's the whole movement with the listening tours and the conversations. But we need to do that for the recruiters. We need to create that platform so recruiters can talk about the challenges that they're faced with. We know smaller organizations are a little different than the larger ones. But smaller organizations are faced with finding that great talent and competing with someone who's also looking at larger organizations. So recruiters and hiring managers, I think the diverse panels are huge in terms of being able to have different perspectives, and don't think it's just about identity. How about, a Black woman that has straight hair? What do you mix with? How about a multiracial person? How about, the Latinas, they're calling Hispanics, Latinx? How about the whole group of the Asian community? All of a sudden, that Koreans and Chinese and Japanese are all together. So, so it's all of that. So you want to get an understanding. You talk to someone that's Asian, you don't know so you want to ask, We want to, I mean, that Janice is so right. We're talking about creating this safe space, but it has to be for everyone,
Right.
and for all the disciplines to come forward together, right? So what do you guys think? And I know I haven't seen any questions in the chat, but please feel free to let us know any questions that you may have. But when you're looking at really where organizations have to shift their thinking and where they're going to attract talent. I will, just real quickly in my book, I tell folks, well, doing more of the same is going to get you more of the same results, right? Doing the same thing, you're going to get the same thing. And so if you go to Ohio, Iowa, less than 5% African-American population looking for your Black talent in Iowa, and that's where 20% of your goals are in Iowa for Black talent, then you're probably not going to meet those goals, right? Probably not.
I hear you.
So I know I'm being a little, but that's the point. We got to do some stuff real differently and real intentionally. So let's talk about a little bit about intention, some best practices around intention to help folks hire that talent that they're looking for. I'm going to actually start with you, Khushbu, this time. Khushbu.
Sorry. So going on to the intention of hiring someone with a disability, right? We always hear, the plus side for someone to hire, or a company to hire someone with a disability. And what are those? Those are, they need to meet those certain numbers in their company, or they need to meet, they get those tax credits or whatever it may be. But the intention's got to be because if they're a qualified candidate. Simple as that, right? Not because, okay, I need to meet my whatever percentage of hiring someone of a diverse background. And just to touch on that a little bit, it goes deeper than that, right? It could be more than someone of color, of LGBTQ, someone with disability. It could be someone with a disability of color, right? Someone who has a disability that is LGBTQ. And the intentions is not just to meet that number. And it's that constant thing we have to remind the businesses or the employers of. It's a qualified individual. It's a qualified individual that meets that role that you're looking for. And I don't know what other simpler terms I can put it in. And I don't think it needs to go any deeper than that. I don't know, James or Janice, if you have more to say to that. But to me, there is no deeper conversation of they're meeting that role that you need.
Right. And go ahead, Janice.
I would agree.
So what I was just going to add to that, sorry, what I was going to add to that, and I'll let you go, Janice, it was, I think we find that, and I know that this has been a theme of a lot of the work of the folks on the panel, is starting to look at work itself in a different way, right? Can work get done, but thinking about it differently. And I would start with, for example, in the inclusive interviewing faction. So thinking about how you as a company interview people, like, for example, is eye contact a highly graded component of your interview? And if it is, does that put somebody with autism or somebody with a learning disability at a disadvantage who don't traditionally make eye contact? Or if somebody comes into your interview and they're incredibly fidgety, right? Does that mean that they're nervous or they're distracted? Or does that mean that's a representation of a portion of their disability, right? So thinking about things the way that we screen people and the way that, and absolutely the point of qualified candidate is key, but how we determine who's qualified may be open for some discussion as we move forward in this environment. Sorry, Janice, for stepping over your thoughts.
It's really interesting, because that's one of the things that really organizations have to look for. And there are the tools out there that actually intentionally take out bias in looking at qualified talent. I was just looking at, the great chat that's going on, and even the way we do campus recruiting and college recruiting. Some folks are going down to the organizational levels. And not just the associations, but the organizations, the diverse organizations that exist on the campuses. If you're a large organization and you have ERGs are actually connecting with the disabilities. They're creating internships for students with disabilities, for veteran hires, for generation. They're doing very intentional things. PwC and some other consulting firms are actually in the high schools creating high school interns at 16, taking them through college to ensure that they hire them afterwards. So a lot of that, you know, is happening, and folks are being really different about that. So, you know, thank you guys for that really robust conversation. But at the end of the day, Janice, I love the fact, you know, when you're in an organization, you know, that the CEO gets it and the CHRO gets it. But how about when the leadership doesn't get it, but they say it, but they really don't get it?
Right.
So, okay, I really can't. That wasn't on the question list. I know. You know,
That's okay.
Real, right?
It's absolutely our reality, right? I know that I'm not going to be a part of every interview and every hire. And someone, either James or Kushba mentioned this before. I just wanted to share. I don't require. We don't have hiring targets. A lot of companies do. We have hiring goals. And there's a difference, right? I don't want to just count numbers to count numbers, but I think most importantly, as James said, as you're bringing somebody in that may be different for whatever reason, if you don't have the safety net built underneath them, they're not going to be successful regardless, right? If you don't have somebody that's offering to mentor and support an individual into a company culture that may be different than what they've had in the past, they're not going to be successful. And I don't care at what level you are. I still have mentors. I still have people that are my safety net that support me through my journey in the workplace, period. So regardless of what level you are, I just wanted to make that known. And when I'm not at the table, because I'm having the conversation and my team is having the conversations consistently, 75% of our organization is operations. They know. It's kind of like being that watchful eye when you're not in the room, but they know you're there. Somebody in somebody's head, they're going to say, what did Pamela think about that? Or she'd been okay with that decision. And then I think there are really good checkpoints that we have in place that allow us to look back to say, how does this look? So on top of, and part of my diversity scope also includes women. And so I'm always looking for those opportunities, not only to promote women, but to develop women and giving them the opportunity to move ahead in the organization. So just be mindful of where those checkpoints are, as well as where are those safety nets to ensure that Janice or Kim or Sharmella are being supported in this new role or position we put them in the workplace as well. It's equally important for their success.
So thank you for those great nuggets. So I think as we wrap up, Janice led in and giving us some of those great nuggets. The other thing that organizations do, they do look at dedicated recruiters for veterans, for persons with disabilities, for people of color. So that's another thing you can look at. So I'm going to ask James and Kushbu, and I will ask you too, Janice, you know, just think of what advice would you like to give our audience in terms of really changing their strategy and being intentional to attract the talent and the goals they have? And also, let me just state this, when you have goals, you have to make sure they're cascaded and can be able to be accountable throughout the relationship, right? Through a line throughout your organization. So what advice would you leave for our audience in trying to create an intentional strategy initiative to attract and retain diverse talent? Kushba?
Yeah, so I think the advice I would give is something we talked about from the beginning, is to open up that conversation, is to, if you're that leader in that company, open up that conversation, really evaluate your team. And if you really want to diversify your workforce, take those steps that we talked about here. James talked about the different tiers that you can go through to find, that diverse pool. Janice talked about the different methods that she kind of uses. I love it's not a number, it's a goal. It's a hiring goal that you have. And looking at your positions as qualifications of, there are different qualifications. There are different ways to do the same job. And how can we really bring someone on board to make them a part of this team, and just not being on those eggshells, right? It's okay to ask. It's okay to talk about it if you truly want to have that on your team.
Oops, my mute button there. That's good. Thank you so much for that. James?
Yeah, my final kind of advice is reach out, right? As a company, if you are wanting all these things are circling in your head about, how do we become more inclusive? How do we become more disability inclusive? There's a lot of things we even talked about today. But I would reach out, right? If you're in the Naperville area, reach out to Khushbu and Parents Alliance and ask her to come on in and have a discussion. Or if you have more of a regional and national focus, reach out to me and we will at very least be able to kind of assess and have a discussion about what your organization could do. Does that mean you take that pass? Absolutely not. But reach out to somebody in the disability community, have a conversation to get started, to prioritize your goals, and then you can build off of that.
Yeah, that's really good. The connections and learning and moving forward. And then Janice, all the nuggets.
I'll try not to repeat anything that was said. It was such great advice here. But here's three really quick ones. Be purposeful and deliberate. Purposeful, knowing what is it that you want to achieve, and then be deliberate about achieving those. I've said this already, focus on goals versus targets. And then one last one that I was thinking about, we didn't really get to talk about this one. Look at competencies when hiring an individual versus how much experience they've had, right? We hire guest service managers. Do I need somebody with 15 years of experience to be a guest service manager? I need strong leadership, customer service skills to be a guest service manager. So again, thinking outside of the box, that will allow you to be more inclusive in terms of who you hire for that position.
Yes.
I've learned so much.
Love that. Love it.
One of the things that I learned was actually from a woman who runs an institute for women in hospitality. Amazing how our paths cross. White female who told me many hotels have this vision around what a customer service rep looks like. And it doesn't look like me, doesn't look like Pam, doesn't look like Sharmila, doesn't look like Khushbu, okay? It was astonishing to me. But when you look at competencies and what competencies will get you in terms of a hire with experience, you will be amazed at the talent you're able to find.
And so thank you so much for that with Janice. We did not get into that conversation, but there are the tools out there, and there's some free tools out there to help you look at proficiencies and those competencies for job postings, where you can then bring forward that talent that basically has the experience to do the work. Oh my goodness, what a wealth of information that this panel brought forward in this quick time here. So, and thank you all for engaging in the chat. With Janice Park, the Chief Human Resource Officer of First Hospitality, James Emmet and Company, and Khushbu Dalvi with, I'm gonna look at the name of that title of your organization. It's a little longer for me. Program Coordinator with the Parents Alliance Employment Project. These are organizations and these companies, all of you with the commitment of being intentional, purposeful, and meaningful. So thank you all for being here. And I am Pam McElvane, your moderator. I will turn it back over now to Dave for the next wrap up.
Great. Thank you guys so much. This has been such a great panel. There's so many different great insights, so much great information. So I hope everyone got something really great out of this that attended today. And now I'm going to turn things over to Sharmila Fowler-Pass, who's the incoming head of our NACE DEI programming subcommittee, to help us wrap up.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. I will be taking over leading these, this subcommittee for programming next year. I'm taking it over from Nate Alberti, who's here. And but we will all be working very closely together to, again, if you and the audience have ideas for programming for next year, please share with me or with someone else on the committee or through the chamber. We'd love to be able to offer relevant programming. So that's really our goal for next year. But I really want to thank all three of our panelists and our moderator. I think we had some really great conversations. I was taking notes, but there's so many notes it would take me like a half hour to just sort of recap everything, and then I'd be recapping everything they said. But again, it's just focusing on what you can do, some of these key takeaways for getting diverse talent into your business. I think they just had a wealth of information. So we're very excited that you are all here. We will also be sharing with you, once again, the link to Pam's ebook. That is complimentary, and it really is the skinny on diversity recruiting. Her hardcover book will be coming out, I believe, in December. Pam, earlier. Pam's on mute.
I think she said it down.
The paperback is out now.
Paperback is out, but I think the ebook has got a lot of great information, and along with that, we'll be sharing the top reasons for, or best practices for hiring diverse talent, and there's a whole list of 13 different best practices that we will also be sharing with you. Okay, so if that's it, then we are ended right on time. Thanks again for joining, and thanks again to our panelists.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Well,